check, and all of us are ready to have this conversation. My name is Andrew Kyamagero. I'll be your host this afternoon, wherever you're watching from and wherever you're joining us from.
Hello, everyone.
It's an honor. At least I've seen a couple of people I dealt with this early morning. I was with Kidega this early morning. He had very, very great conversations there. Good to see you, Moses. It's an honor to have you. I see a couple of other people here. Kidega, I didn't hear that, but can I get that?
Good to see you, Andrew. Good to see you once again, Andrew.
I missed it.
Good to see you once again. Good to see you once
again. Perfect. Good to see you. I see Georgia, you're already here. Good afternoon, Georgia. Georgia?
Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you? Happy to be here.
I'm fine, and it's great to be with you again. It's very gratifying, ladies and gentlemen. I see Marinda Agre, Lydia Chizito, Jeff Kulubia. They're all here, and we are all having a very great conversation ahead of us. First of all, allow me welcome you to this great conversation. Today, we're going to be looking at the post-election context in Uganda after the 2021 elections. And this is spearheaded by the Center for Constitutional Governance with Action Aid Uganda to make sure that we're having this kind of webinar for youth leaders. On my panel, I have Georgia, of course, Tumwesige, the program officer from Forum for Women in Democracy. I have Kidega Moses, Secretary for Labor Affairs, National Youth Council. I expect Nantongo Bashira, the Guild President of the Islamic University in Uganda. Then Nuwagaba Mushin Kaduyu, a peace-building practitioner. Last but not least, Natabi Maria, the Deputy Youth League from the People Power. Mariam, I've seen you around. Good afternoon, Mariam.
Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good afternoon, Andrew. I'm getting you. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Nice
yes,
to see you too.
Yes, Mr. Nuwagaba, good afternoon as well. I didn't hear you. You're muted. You're muted.
Hey. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine. Okay, now I can hear you, and I can certify that everyone is here. Nantongo is equally here. Good afternoon, Nantongo.
Good afternoon, Mr. Andrew. How is everyone here?
Everyone here is good, and we're grateful to have you. I see Daniel Obal. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you?
I'm fine, and it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much.
All right. To start off this conversation, I'm going to start off from a very, very, should I call it a simple, if I can start that way. It seems simple, but it's not that simple. And I'll start off with you, Maria. In your opinion, beyond the youth voting in larger numbers during the 2021 general elections, what more can they do to make their voices heard or have their voices much more amplified in promotion of peace and justice?
Thank you very much, Andrew. I welcome all the viewers. I welcome participating with us or having this discussion after the 2021 elections, which I don't call elections, but I call a war, because that is what it was for us who were part of the different campaign. When you ask me what more can youths do to be heard beyond voting, I also ask a question: what is that other thing that is louder than voting? The young people came out in large numbers, went and voted for a presidential candidate who won and was not declared, and a dictator saw himself in. Then if people can go and vote and not be heard out, what else can we do as young people, really? Because I would suggest things like unity, let's come together. But the young people came together and had one voice and said, you see, enough is enough. Actually, the 2021 elections, it was not an election alone. It was more of a revolution that started way back during the Tojikwatako campaign, because the young people were saying, no, let's give a chance to our constitution. The young people talked, the young people were heard, the young people united, the young people did each and everything. So I think as young people, we have played our part, if it is just about to be heard. And right now, where we must go is to act, because we've said each and everything. People have listened, people have heard, but the ones that stole the power away from the Ugandans are the ones that are suffocating our voices as young people. All I can say right now is all we need to do is stand up for our voices, because we've said it all and done it all.
And how are you going to stand up for your voices? That's exactly what I want to know. How are you going to stand for your voices? Mariam?
We are going to demand, we are already using, every young person is using the platform they have to demand one for justice across like all sectors, because we know there is no justice all over. When you go to where we would actually find justice first is court. We cannot find justice there anymore. So it is useless for us to it is almost useless for us to go to run to courts of law. Young people everyone is using their platform so as to continue fighting for our victory, one, and then two, for justice to prevail in this country. Three, for the power to come back to the people of the people of Uganda, and the institutions that keep this power on behalf of the people.
Okay, thank you so much, Mariam Natabi, from the deputy. She's the deputy youth league from the People Power. Nuwagaba Kaduyu, as a peace building practitioner, the approach Mariam is saying the youth are taking in this country, does it make sense to you? Is it feasible? Is it long lasting? Will it deliver? Nuwagaba?
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate my sister's input and what she said. But I want us to understand the context within which we are operating. We are living in a country that has experienced almost 40 years of war, and we have not experienced really peace that we can say we are enjoying that much. So peace building, when you're reconstructing, peace in an environment, you need to understand exactly what kind of actions are you supposed to take, which groups are supposed to do what. So the young people have been nurtured in an environment where they believe that force, using force works. And it is evident in our environment that, if you use force, because if we see people who are in political positions today, they came through the use of force. So what we need to do as young people, I would say, is to reorganize ourselves, reorganize our spaces. If we look at our spaces today, how organized are they? How cohesive are they? And it's not just all about, getting our voices heard. We need to also empower ourselves. How do we speak? How do we get our message across? If you're seeking for justice, for example, justice that is rooted in hatred and anger is not justice that we all long for. You cannot promise justice where there is hatred and anger all over. What we need to do is reorganize ourselves, empower ourselves. What skills do we need? Which people are supposed to do what? And then if we have that, I believe with our context, because it's not really that much of a good context because these democratic practices that we do have, like elections and everything, yes, we would say they are okay, but they are not that much strong to promise sustainable peace in our communities, what it can promise is something small that can deliver the peace that we long for. So we need to reorganize, empower ourselves, and then do the much work that is needed as young people.
Now, this brings in Georgia Tumwesige, the programs officer from the Forum for Women in Democracy. Georgia, as a woman who was participating in the elections and you saw how things were being run, I'm sure there's some things that met your eyes and your eyeballs went so wide and they could possibly have fallen out. With all this, let's look at the women in politics or in governance. Do you believe that there is fairness, if I can call it that way, political fairness for the women?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Very, very interesting question. When you speak of fairness, in relation to the colonial structure that is Uganda, it is like mixing milk and blood. You know, one of the questions I keep asking myself is how minorities manage to overtake and manage the country. When you look at youth today, beyond just, I think Uganda is the most youthful nation in the world, yes, but it is surprising that we are managed by the elderly. We are the youngest population under the management of an elderly cabinet. As of last year, I think, let me not go into last year, and look at the women again. The registered voters for women, I think, were 52-point-something%, and the registered number of voters, males, were 49.7%. And yet, politics is is still largely. Someone is asking me to turn on my video.
Yes, okay. And Atukunda, please mute your mic, because when you're typing, the sound actually interrupts the speakers. So all the rest in the gallery, I kindly request that we can mute our mics, but to all the panelists, I would need to have your video. Perfect. See, we're missing this.
Okay.
All right, carry on.
Okay. So the playing ground is not leveled, and we need to have it leveled. We still have largely commercialized politics. And as long as we continue to have commercialized politics, and we know very well that money is mostly in the hands of men. Even when we talk about the youth, the reason that's why we saw youth coming out in large numbers. Youth participated in the previous elections as voters, as candidates, as agents, as election monitors and observers. But still, we still have only 27, I think, youthful MPs in the Parliament of Uganda. I have not yet properly calculated the ages of the current cabinet, but even now, when I looked at the previous cabinet, I think we only had 2 people in their 40s and 5 in their 50s. Majority were in their 60s and 70s. So that is something that, you know, we cannot say fair and then Uganda. There is still political violence. When you look, now, Andrew, I'm also going to come to your side. The media, the coverage of women. We still have sexist coverage of women today. You know, when they're talking about a male candidate, they're going to say, oh, the mighty honorable Kyamagero Andrew, who graduated from Johns Hopkins University. He has 2 masters, one in journalism, another one in medicine, and you know he's this and this. They'll say you're an entrepreneur, they will say this and that. When they start talking about a woman and the coverage of a woman, they'll say, oh, sexy Nantaba tantalizes Kayunga. You know, that is the sort of coverage. They will say she's a mother, she's a wife. So when you look at the coverage, they do not concentrate on the strength of the woman as a candidate. They will talk about her body. They will pull out pictures of her at a beach in Miami and say, see, this is the kind of person you want to vote into power. We still have political patronage. Do you know we have godfathers and godmothers? There are people in communities who, as long as you do not pay allegiance to them, you cannot win an election. And that also goes for the youth. That is why even the youth remain sidelined. And as long as this continues to happen in the colonial structure that is Uganda, women and the youth will remain on the fringes of decision making.
Just a minute, Georgia, I'm going to come back to you. You have very pertinent points there. But I want to tap into another person here. It's just 15 minutes to 3 p.m. I want to thank all those that are here with us. We are having a very great conversation. Nantongo, I'm sure, do we still have Nantongo? Is Nantongo still here with us? Nantongo, can you hear me? Okay, I'll go with Kidega. Moses Kidega, given that you're on the National Youth Council, Uganda witnessed its worst election violence in a decade during the 2021 general election period, and most of the victims were the youth, if you saw it. Now, the ferocity of the violence and the state's use of armed plainclothes, should I call them militias, raised alarm. In your view, Mr. Kidega, what caused this election violence and how can we bring it to an end so that it does not spill over in the next coming election?
Thank you, Andrew. First and foremost, Andrew, when you are introducing us, I don't recall you introducing Maria as the spokesperson of this country's young people, because I heard us speaking on behalf of young people, that young people did this and voted for opposition and things like that. I think young people took independent decisions, and she has no decorum whatsoever to speak on behalf of young people. Young people, at least from where I'm seated, I supported the NRM. I voted the NRM, and I mobilized for the NRM. So I think Maria's argument and self proclamation to speak on behalf of young people is very misleading. Then to your question, I've read the book by Paul Courier. The book is called Guns, Votes, and Violence: Democracy in a Dangerous Place. Paul Courier said that conflicts are caused by grief and grievances. Now, in the context of our election that has just been concluded, you had a faction of young people who were aggrieved. Then you have this old group of people who have a lot of greed and are still clinging to power, which is a fact. We must discuss this openly. But to me, I think that is not a cast in stone entirely. The young people played a role in orchestrating this violence as much. Because if you look at the 18th and 19th 2020 November violence, it was mainly young people who were on the streets holding stones and holding those other things, burning tires. So how then can we discuss from a point of innocence? I think young people are as guilty as charged. But like I've explained, this is all anchored around the grievances that they're having. And this morning I was on NTV, Andrew, and you heard me say that the inequality, the socio-economic injustice that exists between the two classes of people in Uganda society has been one of the fundamental causes of these differences between these two groups. I don't want to think like the Athens who thought about 2,000 years ago, who said that war is inevitable. So in this case, I don't want to believe that violence is inevitable, the way Maria is trying to portray it, that they are going to go up in arms. No. We must encourage constitutionalism as a very important value in our society. And we cannot begin to...
Kidega Maria comes from the school of thought that when they were given a chance to go and vote, they practiced what they thought would actually bring the change they wanted to see. But with all the militias from the government, which you actually support and mobilize for, they were castigated. They were denied. They were oppressed. Some people were taken off the ballot list and at the polling stations. There was a lot of chaos. With all this at play, we want to know, the push factor is agitation. They feel frustrated. How do we avoid it so that in the next cycle of elections, we don't slide in the sand?
I think, Andrew, there are better ways for us to organize ourselves as young people. It's very important as young people to identify our fulcrum, our center of gravity, what brings us together as young people. And this I've said before, it is the socio-economic imparity that exists in our country that brings the young people together. Because I think that we can organize ourselves. I have read a concept that is dubbed RRSS, which is resilience, relationship, social bond, and social advancements, that we don't need to go up in arms as young people. What we need to do is to be resilient. In so doing, we shall create a...
Okay, so I had wanted to agree with Kidega on one of the points he had mentioned.
Yes, Georgia.
Yes. So while there are some things I do not agree with him on, one of the points on which I greatly agree with him is the fact that the youth need to find that something that brings them together. What's that one goal? What's that one thing that we all yearn for as the youth in Uganda? And that one thing, that one goal, that one vision that can bring us together, that can help us to create a movement, or of the youth in elections, in peace building, in fostering justice and governance, would be, I think I'm already jumping quickly to recommendations, but unless the youth have one joint front, it's going to be just going to remain disjointed efforts across. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Georgia. So
Coming in, if you don't mind, Moses was
we'll
talking
hear from let me see. No. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, can I come in?
So let's hear from Nuwagaba. Is this Maria? Can we hear from Nuwagaba, please?
Provide jobs for young people. They won't be on the streets protesting. So what we need to do is to understand the context of young people today. What do they want? What they want are jobs. Jobs. When you see conflict happening around the world, it's not because old women don't have work to provide jobs for young people. They won't be on the streets protesting. So what we need to do is to understand the context of young people today. What do they want? What they want are jobs. Jobs. When you see conflict happening around the world, it's not because old women don't have work to do.
Thank you so much, Nuwagaba. We've taken that. Thank you so much. So we'll now hear from Maria. Maria, several arrests and kidnaps have been reported by family members to the extent that some people up to date have no clue on where their people are. So in the recent press conference, it's not even recent, in January, the Minister of Internal Affairs said that government doesn't know even the whereabouts of some of those people. According to you, as one of the youth leaders in NUB, where do you think this leaves Ugandans, especially the young people and their families who are kidnapped and those who are not found? Maria, back to you.
Thank you very much. Before I get to that question, I want to first inform Moses. I may not be the spokesperson of the young people in Uganda, but I am a young person myself. Most of the people I interact with are 90% young people. I also want to inform him that this country, like 78% of the people are below 30 years of age. And all those people are young people. And what I'm saying is not anything new. Like, even a young child knows what is happening in this country. So it does not need a spokesperson to come and paint for us a picture, which we are actually living as young people. I was formerly a member of the National Youth Council. I know what happens in the Youth Council. allow me submit. You can always come in. And,
you're going to submit, but my job as a moderator is to make sure that we stay in the context, because Kidega responded to that in the context of what we are discussing here.
Again, so Andrew, please take back from me.
Yes. So I was making clarity for Maria that what Kidega was saying, it was based on the context of what we are discussing, that it shouldn't sum up everyone. So Kidega felt that you actually submerged him in the same cluster of those kind of views. Carry on, Maria.
Okay, that's that. Yes, that I understand. I was talking, I was not summing up all the young people. I was talking about most of the young people, most, not all of them. And then I also want, I really want to explain, before I go to the kidnaps and the torture and all that, there is something I really wanted to talk about, causes of the election violence, a question that was being discussed before. Before we accuse young people, we shall not be fair to ourselves to accuse ourselves of causing violence. Yet we know the people behind the violence that is always caused, especially during elections. I'll give an example. There is always one of the things that sparks that violence is unfair treatment of the people, most of the young people who are in opposition by the police, and the way the police uses excessive force against the young people in opposition. We all know it. This police is not acting as police. There are people behind them, and those people are not young people. The people propagating this violence, we heard the dictator Museveni saying he is the master of violence. So we shan't be fair for us to say young people are the ones propagating violence before we actually get to know the root cause of that violence. Answering the question of the kidnaps, people are bitter, I can tell you. People have lost hope in the current leadership. When a minister comes out and says, we do not know where these people are, then the spokesperson of police also brings up another version of his story. Then the dictator who saw himself in as a president comes and tells us these people are under the custody of the security. Whom should we believe? Like, all institutions are broken. People have lost trust in the security institutions. I can give you an example that even the families that lost their loved ones, the families that whose people were kidnapped, would not go to police to report such incidences because they thought police itself had kidnapped and tortured their people. So there is nowhere to run to in such a country. So that is the state in which the people who were kidnapped or who lost their loved ones are in. So you cannot talk of peace without justice for these people. We must see that in each and every way possible, justice prevails for these people who have lost their loved ones, for the people who have been kidnapped, for the people who have been tortured. Most of the people in NUP are still fighting a lot of mental health challenges just because of what you had to go through that entire campaign war. I really feel so sad. That is where we are.
Mariam, I really want to thank you for your submission. I feel with you as a journalist who reported during the elections. I know how tedious it was. But now, in the context of what we are dealing with, Mariam, currently, we are dealing with, please, Zakatkunda, I'll get back to you later. We are dealing with with peace. We're trying to look for peace and justice. And in your submission, your first submission, Maria, you made it much more clear that you don't trust the courts of law. And again, you made it alert that the security forces and the militias are doing whatever they're doing with some invisible hand on the other side. Then it brings me to the context of the question now. So how are we going to fight for peace and justice when we don't trust the systems in place? Maria?
Andrew, thank you very much for that question. For me, why we don't trust this system, it is because they've been broken by patronage. They've been individualized. These institutions are not there to serve the Ugandans. These institutions are serving a one dictator called Mr. Museveni. So, personally, I think for us to achieve peace, because I will give you an fair election in this country, Uganda, if Mr. Museveni is on the ballot paper. So with that statement, one of the things we thought would lead to peace in this country, Uganda, is ensuring that the Article 102B is not amended. But we know what happened. It was amended under a lot of violence against members of. So we do that only shows us that all institutions are gagged by that same person. My recommendation would be that person knows very well that he rigged an election. Let him resign and let the people who were voted for truly by the Ugandans take up that seat. And that is Honorable Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. And as a member of the National Unity Platform,
Maria, because of time, I'm going to cut you short. Maria, because of time, allow me cut you short.
Let me just finish this.
No, Maria, you had a chance. You will return, Maria, and we'll listen to you. Nantongo Bashal has not given us a submission. Allow me. We're fighting for fairness here. So, Nantongo Bashal, the guild president, the Islamic University of Uganda. It's an honor to have you here. Now, Nantongo, we have witnessed the trial of civilians, especially the young people. I saw the other day Dan Magic, Nubian Lee, and the other clusters. They were charged, and rather they were tried in court-martial. And the challenges of detention without trial for most of the victims of arbitrary arrest, in your view, Nantongo, where you sit and stand, why is this the case when the Constitutional Court has consistently ruled against the practice that civilians must be tried in civilian courts? What's your take on this? Nantongo? Your network.
Very much to give my own submission. I don't know whether you're getting me.
Okay, now I can, but I'm getting you in a very...
I get me now.
No, I am not getting you. Your network is a little bit queer.
Are you getting me now?
Okay, now I can hear you.
The thing is...
Nantongo, can we have your video? Are you okay with having a video on? Okay. I think I lost her. The network wasn't that good. But let me come back to you. I need a lady here to actually counteract this conversation. But okay, let me come back to you, Kidega. Kidega, are you still with us? Okay. I think
he's not there.
Kyamagero, give me an opportunity as well.
No, just wait. When the panelists are actually doing this, then I'll open the floor to the rest of us.
Okay.
Okay. Nuwagaba, let's react to this. Something that you've seen, civilians in, military courts. What do you make of this from your point of view?
Well, it's very wrong, to try civilians in court martial, in whichever way you look at it, it's really very wrong. But I would say that whatever we are looking at right now is a symptom of a very serious disease. Our environment needs us to reorganize and ask serious questions. We are not going to reduce all the problems to just hashtags and anger like we always see. Young people are grieved, everyone, oh, my people are here. We are always putting hashtags everywhere and just angry. What we need to do is to reorganize, ask ourselves as Ugandans, how did we get here? How do we move forward collectively? Is it an issue that calls for serious dialogue? You know, is it an issue that calls for serious restructuring of our systems? Whatever is there today, is it transformative in nature? If it is elections that are the problem, what other solution do we have? If we are going to go into an election, but people are going to be arrested and killed and what, then what solution do we have for that? You know, we need to ask ourselves as Ugandans, not just as young people, but as Ugandans collectively, how do we move together forward and be there to listen to each other? The point of dialogue at this particular moment is very, very important. Also, the point where it is very easy to slide back to chaos, because we've seen in many countries they have voted, but again they have slided back to violence. So what happens now as a country? We need peace. We need to make sure that our future is secured. But how will it be secured if we are just there, you know, disorganized? You know, we don't want to even talk to each other. We don't want to listen to each other. That is something that I think is a problem at this particular. We can talk about all these things. People are arrested. People are what? Everyone has a responsibility here. Even if it is the media today, what role have you played? We are talking about violence during elections, but the media also played a role. So these are things that we need to look at through dialogue. Thank you.
Okay. Nantongo is back. Thank you so much, Nuwagaba. Nantongo is back. Nantongo, is your network stable now?
I don't know, maybe you can tell me whether you can hear me now.
Okay, now I can.
Yes, my take on that is that the civilians being taken into courts of law is because, you know, Baganda even have a saying that it's actually more of like raising someone. When you raise someone, the way you raise this person, like your background defines you the most. So our background, getting our independence and up to now, we've been taken through, we've been governed by a militant government. And you see the war in 1986 when it's the military junta himself, the big man, the president, was the one who was heading actually the war, and he won and actually became the president. Though some years after he won power are not actually calculated, they only count 35, but to me, they are more than 35 years. If we had that background and it's still governed by the same person who was actually participating in that same war, then please expect that. It's only that we can change that after the government has changed. And for the time that we shall be still governed by that same person, or by the people still who participated in that 80, trust me, we are still going to face that challenge of civilians. Because the main insight of this is they want to instigate that, to put in that fear into the youth, so that they won't stand for their rights, and they will be all the time fearing to stand up, because they will be like, they will take us to the military court. So it's a form of fear, creating that fear, asserting that fear into the young people who would have stood to demand for their independence. To my opinion, it will remain the same up to the time when the militant government has resigned, or when the militant government is no longer taking authority or taking decisions in our country.
Thank you, Nantongo. Well, from the gallery, I have Daniel Obal says, I think the problem is that the youths have been the trucks to think that Uganda's problem is President Museveni, which is wrong. He goes on and says that the challenges of Ugandan youths is not any different from those being faced in other African countries. The youth need to engage in empowering themselves socially, economically, if they must rise politically. And then Wesige Ram says, it's not all about Museveni alone. It's about the system. The laws, ideology, we don't have to fight only a dictator. Our energies ought to fight the dictatorship. Fight the system that creates the dictators. We are still having this conversation now. Coming back to you, I'm coming back to you, Georgia. Georgia, from where you actually see all these, especially the women in politics. Let's talk about the youth. The youth have other representation in special structures, like the National Youth Council and the Uganda National Students Association, as well as a party youth league structures. Like Miriam comes from the NUP, they have a youth wing, NRM has the youth wing, FDC has the youth wing. What agenda have these structures set, and do they serve the needs of the youth from where you see?
Thank you, Andrew.
Georgia, let me have your video again.
You see, all these structures, my lighting is not as good, so I'll just go. Okay, right, so cool. All these structures that are put in place for the youth are actually almost like the structures that are put in place for the women. Mm-hmm. I feel like while some of these structures are meant to include, they end up living. It's like, okay, so we have created, this is a very big table, but at the end of this table, at the very last corner, we have created something for you. We have put this one chair for you so that you don't complain a lot. That is when you see, in a very big party where majority of the leadership are males, or majority of the leadership are the elderly, you see, okay, so you guys, what do you want? You have a youth wing. You struggle for leadership in the youth wing. But it's not just about the youth wing. When you look at the major political parties that we have today, I think actually this is NRM had the highest ranking, the Secretary General. At the time, she must have been the highest ranking woman in any political party. And at the time, we had political party presidents who later abandoned the party. We had Betty Kamya, who formed a political party. At the time, she was a president to one, but now it's not there. So I think, Andrew, it's about restructuring.
Okay.
I'm going to take on the words of Nuwagaba, where he said, this is a disease and these are some of the symptoms. And I agree with the person who said the problem of Uganda is not Museveni. It's everything to do with the colonial structure that was left in place. There are so many things happening now. If we could go back to the drawing board, Andrew, and understand how this country came into existence, we would not be where we are today. Uganda is actually a land of immigrants. If people could understand the making of Uganda, they would come together and have one vision so that we live in this country peacefully. There are only 3 tribes in the entire country that are indigenous. We have only the Batwa, the Ik, and the Tepeth. Now, those are the people who are minorities right now. We came, invaded this country. You remember the Bantu migrations from Congo. You remember the Bito dynasty coming in from Bahel El Gazelle. You remember the Bunyoretstara Empire integrating, and all these things that have happened. Now you look at the independent structures. Andrew, if we do not go back to the history of this country, we are not going to embark on a path of reconciliation, on a path of
Yes, Georgia. Oh, I think I lost her. But she had very, very pertinent points there. And I really want to thank all of you who are sending in the messages here in the chat room. We're keeping going. We're keeping the conversation going. Let me throw this again to Maria.
Okay.
Maria.
Hello, Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
This is Kidega Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but you're hollow.
Okay, so what do? I can't proceed?
No, you can proceed, but before Mariam actually comes in, I want you to respond to this, yeah?
This is Kidega Moses, huh?
Yes, Kidega. I'm getting you loud and clear. The youth representation, given that you're on the National Youth Council, we have different structures from the different political parties, even at the village level. The people who are sitting in these kind of committees and within those structures, are they in any way amplifying the needs of the youth?
Thank you very much. It is quite fortunate that I am on the UNSA National Committee, and at the same time, I am on the National Youth Council National Executive Committee. And to me, I think these institutions, whereas the leaders have the best interests of their constituents at heart, I think there is no coherent agenda and fulcrum that is anchored around the youth movement. Therefore, what this results into is you find the youth voice disappearing in these respective institutions. You find that the National Youth Council is pursuing a different agenda. UNSA is pursuing a different agenda. Democratic Party Youth League is pursuing a different agenda. There is no center of organization. There is no center of gravity that brings together the youth movement from all these divides, the civil society, the National Youth Council, UNSA, and all these youth-led organizations. So to me, I think, whereas the leadership has the best interests, they fall short of the aspect of there is no youth movement agenda that brings all of us together and pushes us towards a common goal and direction.
And you, Kidega, just a minute. And you, given that you're sitting on the national board, have you taken it upon yourself to make sure that you guide this narrative, that the powers that be can understand what the youths want? If we don't have a common agenda and you are at the national level, what efforts are you putting so that we can have galvanized unity structures from the ground?
I think, Andrew, thank you. What we can do is really continue trying to organize and to mobilize our fellow young people in all these respective institutions. Because, like I told you, I am on the National Committee of UNSA and at the same time of the National Youth Council. I have been privileged to have an experience of these two respective institutions. But like I've singled out, the aspect of mobilization and organization lies entirely on we, the leadership. We cannot blame government for everything. We cannot blame government for even our failure to organize ourselves internally. So I think what we haven't done, we must accept, and what we can do, we must continue trying to do. So I think the National Youth Council can only promise to offer leadership in this direction, because it is our mandate to bring together all young people across the country. Because if you look at the National Youth Council Act, it talks about the youth wing of all these political parties. They all fall under the National Youth Council Act. So the National Youth Council is the father, or should be the father, of all these respective youth organizations. But in the past, I concede the National Youth Council has not offered leadership in that regard. And what we can promise is that our new tenure, that is 6 months old, we are going to offer leadership. We are going to bring all these youth-related organizations, the youth wings of the respective political parties, the civil society organizations that are youth-led, UNSA, among other youth organizations. We promise to offer leadership and bring them together and foster the common youth agenda that benefits the young people of this country.
Thank you so much, Kidega Moses. Hang in there. I'm getting back to you, Mariam Natabi. It was observed that COVID-19 was weaponized during the 2021 general elections against opposition political parties, where you actually fall. And there are even worse challenges in the second wave of COVID-19, because we have registered many deaths, including young people, and the medical bills are soaring so high. Only the privileged few can afford. As a youth leader, how are you addressing these challenges from your communities and on a national scale? Maria?
Thank you very much, Andrew. As a youth leader, the challenges that have been sparked off by the COVID pandemic have affected young people so much. But personally, as a leader under the National Unity Platform, there is nothing much I can do to give answers or to give solutions to all I can do is maybe learn from this entire process, learn from all these challenges, and make resolutions on how things should be handled in this country. I'll give an example. From the last lockdown, everyone realized that our health system is down, like the entire system is down. So before this other second lockdown came, I expected government to have prepared for it much more better than the first lockdown, which of course did not take place, because all we hear right now is how the other lockdown was used to get money to facilitate campaigns. All were embezzled by people. So those are challenges we are facing. But right now, all I can say is our hands as a youth leader in the National Unity Platform. All I can do is pick a few lessons from what is happening right now. I can talk to the leader of opposition and tell them, you see, I think this should be the way to go. This should be the way to go. But nothing, I cannot act much.
Okay. Nuwagaba,
can I make a rebuttal?
Please, you can.
You see, Sarah has, Mariam has proven to us why Ugandans have not trusted the opposition for a very long time. Why? She has just said in her own words that she doesn't know what to do and she has no solutions, not even advice towards this crisis and how best young people can maneuver. And to me, that is where the challenge is, that whereas our young people are advocating for ABCD, they actually haven't prepared themselves enough to offer solutions to these community and society problems. So if you ask me what needs to be done, is that this COVID-19 pandemic has given us an opportunity as a country to maybe introduce or review our social welfare policies. Medicare, it is being done in the USA. So that under such circumstances, there is a safety net for our citizens. There is a safety net for everyone, irrespective of their social and economic capacity. So to me, moving forward, this COVID-19 pandemic should awaken the population and encourage us to focus more on wealth creation, so that when such circumstances abruptly attack us, we are more prepared. And that's why we have been advocating for the socio-economic transformation of our young people. Because it is under such circumstances where our savings, if there be, will be used, to help us maneuver through such circumstances. But also, you see, Comrade
Kidega, before you proceed, allow me to interject a bit. Let's be honest about this. We cannot have enough savings when people are unemployed. We cannot have enough savings to go through the kind of tide where we are today, when the Youth Livelihood Program and all those other Myoga schemes and the likes have failed their youth at the different levels. You go to the sub-county level, you go to the parish level, a few beneficiaries have tapped into that. But the real youth, the Muntu-Awansi youth, who actually voted a youth leader on a particular committee and to the national level, has not benefited. So the question then is, how do we make sure that the cake is shared equally for the youth, that they don't agitate for whatever is actually failing, and they can find solution? Can you find a solution, Kidega, when you're hungry?
Definitely not.
Andrew.
And you see, Andrew, me and you this morning had a discussion around youth unemployment, and I offered you sustainable solutions on how best we can get our young people to work. Unless you're saying I should repeat myself For the sake of others.
You can, because this is a totally different spectrum. We need to understand what strategies are there that can help the youth have jobs. We need jobs. We need jobs like that. That's a new song. And every person who comes in tells us that, oh, we are going to create for you jobs. Good thing your administration has been there 6 months. What strategies do you have? If we realize that the youth are being, cheered up and fueled because of lack of jobs, and then they go on the streets and they agitate for what they think is right and what you call being alarmist or being polarized. What strategies do you have to make them jobs?
Thank you, Andrew. You see, and in the morning, I had this discussion with you, and I'm glad that it has come back.
Yes.
My argument has always been that the young people, through their leaders, should position themselves to champion socio-economic reforms in this country. And what we can do as young people is entirely advocate. By now, it is very clear to us that the public sector cannot absorb all young people. There are only 40,000 jobs in the public sector. I have told you that the answers lie in the private sector. We must push government deliberately to inject and commit more resources to the private sector. If we have a private sector that is working, a private sector that can expand its enterprise, we shall have more jobs being created in the private sector. Therefore, we shall have more young people being absorbed into the money economy and eventually be able to earn a salary and make savings and pay taxes. And the private sector can solve so many of our problems. I've said this before. The debt burden, the issue of the cost of production, the issue of employment, the answers lie in the private sector. Developed countries like the USA have developed through the ability of the private sector to thrive. This morning, I quoted to you, Andrew, that the former USA Secretary of State, Alexander Hamilton, in his tenure as a leader, enacted what he called the Smoot-Lowell tariff that protected the indigenous American private practicing business person from external competition, from Germany, from Russia, and these were deliberate acts. And today, we are celebrating the powerful companies on Wall Street that are employing so many millions of Americans, migrants inclusive. The answer lies in the private sector. We must push government through all platforms that we can access, advocate for government to commit more resources through our legislative assembly. We must push our MPs to advocate so that more money is put in work, and that is where the answer lies to our jobs.
Thank you so much, Kidega. Mariam wanted to respond to that in a bit. Mariam? Maria? Maria, you wanted to react to this?
No, all I can tell Moses is I am just being truthful. I know I would love to talk about things that are going to please people, that, we are going to do this and this and the other. But as a member of the National Unity Platform, offering alternatives to the leader of opposition for them to say upon government to either take up the solutions or not. And like I mentioned, I said in my capacity, that is all I can.
Maria,
and that's why I was up.
Okay. I want to challenge Maria because tell us the recommendations just given to the leader of opposition.
Both of you, she's going to give us those deliberations later, the recommendations. But allow me to read something from the gallery. Daniel Obal says that, I think there has been various initiatives for the youth. There has been the Green Jobs Shonghai model under the Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development for job creation in the Central region. And there was the Albertine job model for the Albertine region. The youth livelihood, though all these are debatable and they have been there, what extent should they have been helpful in debating this? Now, this brings me back to you, Nuwagaba. from where you see all these things going around, this takes us to the real core issue of why we are having all these issues coming back and forth. The issue of youth fostering peace and justice, they must be employed. They must be doing something in the context of the post-election in 2021, because now they are redundant. Nuwagaba, what needs to be done to address this issue?
Well, thank you so much, Andrew.
Yes.
I'm enjoying the input by Kidega and my sister Maria. Quite exciting and to see young people with all this passion and everything. But I want us to remember one thing, that this whole situation that we are talking about, it's not by accident that we are here. Are we together? It's not
Yes,
by accident that we have young people and they don't have jobs. It's not by accident that we have the high levels of political polarization. It's not by accident. And how did we get here? That after whatever happened and the processes that we've been adopting, during our post-conflict reconstruction have not really worked that much. Because if at all we are talking about the economy, for example, and we are talking about jobs for young people, did we invest in the best sectors that would employ our young people, for example? No, we did not. Did we create enough jobs in terms of the, for example, in the public sector? What we are doing in the public sector is to actually inflate the civil service. And this actually creates a long-term liability. So what we need to do is to sit down as a country and ask ourselves, you guys, whatever we are doing, because everyone has a role to play. We are talking about the role of young people, for example, and their spaces, the youth organizations, the Uganda National Youth, the youth councils and everything. We need to take a critical look at all these spaces and ask ourselves, how effective are they? In my opinion, if we want to defy all the threats that are facing young people and our country as a whole, we need to make sure that these spaces, for example, work for the young people. First of all, we have to ensure that all these spaces become safe spaces for young people to dialogue, to talk, for mediation, to make sure that the conflicts between, for example, young people, whatever is happening, young people from Buganda, you'll hear Buganda against Banyankore, Banyankore against all those things that we always see during the election periods, for example. How do young people help to mitigate such threats? Ensuring training opportunities for young people in dialogue, in conflict mitigation, in digital and critical literacy, for example, in management strategies. Where is the inclusion agenda for young people in these spaces? Also promoting those activities that are focused on understanding and appreciation. So if we look at the whole problem of jobs and everything is not something that came out of the blue. There is a root cause that where all these things come from, and we must look at them collectively as young people, as people who are old and everything. Then how do we move forward? And I think those are some of the solutions that I can offer.
Okay, thank you so much. Nantongo, from where you see all this going,
I'm looking for you.
Will this be lasting? Nantongo?
And by the way, wait a minute. One thing, my brother, sorry for interrupting. I remember you talked about COVID and the elections. And you talked about weaponizing the elections by the state and everything. Yes. But then I would ask a question. What would have been the cost if we avoided the elections, for example? Because you can see what is happening today in Ethiopia between the federal government and the people in the Tigray region. When Abiy Ahmed told them, please don't hold the elections because of COVID, what happened? The people have been massacred. So yes. So the question is, what would have been the cost if we avoided the elections? Okay, if they were weaponized, now we are here. What happens next? Thank you so much.
Okay, Nantongo, you had a submission to make with regards to what he had earlier submitted.
Thank you very much. I've been actually following the discussion and the arguments between some of the panelists. But for me, I think if we were to start something, we need to start with the little we have and make it shine, because even the young first crawl before walking. So I believe we have youth aside the affirmative seats, aside these of the youth, the regional and one being a female representative of parliament. And if we have to sum up those people, they could useful MPs. And aside that, we also have youth in offices of responsibilities. What are these youth helping other youth? So the challenge then comes in when we see the problem of monetization. Most of our youth have also been caught up by the acts of corruption, and they are more than helping fellow youth to stand up. We also see the act of tribalism. Trust me, it is there. Believe me or not, we have the issue of tribalism. People pick now, I guess, even if the Uganda take over, they'll start putting aside the Banyankole, saying you are there for a time, yet these people were not there. So tribalism is also another issue. We also see the issue of we see the tribalism, and we see the issue of these youth actually lack that energy, the vigor. We need the ideological orientation. There is no use of shouting when what you're shouting is not making sense. So our youth have to be impacted ideologically. And it comes back to we, the youth leaders, and my fellow panelists who are sitting in offices of responsibilities. You can impact on these youth by actually using your offices and changing the mindset of our youth ideologically. I personally, actually, I didn't mention this, but I was one of the candidates on the direct seat of Busiro North on the MP seat. I interacted with many people. People could support NUP. Yes, me, I don't have anything to do with opposition. So long as the opposition, I totally support you in any way. But then shouting NUP when actually you don't know the NUP agenda, or when actually you don't know whom you're picking, because we still have those people who are covered in NUP clothes when they are not actually NUP, and they're just looking for their selfish interest. So it comes back to the youth. You shout, or you make conclusions, or you take action after considering, after reading and doing more research, because you can't shout. Even if I stand here and I shout to my highest and I'm not communicating, Mr. Andrew will definitely concentrate to what actually concerns you, because you know that my shouting is not making any sense. So this is exactly what these youth are doing. Apparently, they are shouting when the shouting is not making any sense. So the problem comes in with the ideological orientation. It's a very huge problem that we need actually to put on board and solve immediately, because I guess it's now becoming worse, and we are actually being victims of such. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nantongo. Back to you, Georgia. Let's talk about the curfews, the unjustified arrest of imposing the COVID-19. What safeguards are in place to ensure that the youth are protected from these forms of human rights violations, harassment, and victimization, by the way? Georgia?
Thank you very much, Andrew. When you talked about curfew, I'm going to, I want to share something with you. Please. Recently, the Forum for Women in Democracy, in partnership with the Uganda.
Oh dear. I think I can't hear you. Georgia, are you still there? Okay. I'll go back to Maria. Maria, let's talk about the curfews and the abuse of the human rights, especially for the youth. What safe nets do we have for them there? Maria? Okay, I'll pass it back to Kidega. Kidega, what safe nets do we have for the youth to avoid victimization during curfew? At times, their rights are violated at different layers. Kidega, unmic your mic is still mute.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, thank you, Andrew, and everyone here. You see, Andrew, I have read a book on international conflict and politics, where there was a scenario that tried to highlight that when you join a new institution, anyone would be comfortable to be a roommate with someone who believes in die shall not kill. But very few people can vote for a president who believes that they cannot take drastic action even when the country is under threat. Anyone would vote for a president who they believe will protect the country when it's under threat of war, among other devastating international challenges. Now, to bring this back into context, the state preserves the responsibility to protect its citizens in times of war, in times of pandemics, like this one here. So, and I think it's very important for us to accept or acknowledge that self-preservation is very important. It's a matter of life and death. The curfews, the SOPs that have been put there, the guidelines that have been put there, irrespective of how pinching they are on the economy, on our social lives, they are meant to help us preserve our safety as citizens. I don't see why anyone should in the first place disobey these guidelines. They are for your own good. So I think the state preserves the right and monopoly to protect its citizens, but I also don't agree that in the course of trying to protect citizens, they should use external aggression or excessive aggression. I believe it should be moderate in implementing these guidelines that are meant to protect the population from a very serious crisis that we are facing. So I think let's not be very very complacent as a people, really, because the guidelines that are there are meant to protect all of us, really.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kidega. I'll get back to you that someone wants to respond to this because
Andrew, I would like to come back.
Please, carry on.
I hope I'm clear now.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I was sharing that the Uganda National NGO Forum, in partnership with Forum for Women in Democracy, conducted a mini audit by citizens. And when you talked about curfew, I remembered something. We discovered that beyond the presidential curfew, husbands had also imposed curfew. So
at home?
Yes, at home there were.
Oh no, Mariam's mic.
Andrew, we are speaking of rights, but if COVID kills you, you won't have the rights in the first place.
I understand.
You won't have rights if you're a dead person.
Georgia, are you still there? Georgia, just a minute, Kidega. Georgia, can you hear me? Very bad. We need internet. As youths, we need to the leaders in positions, you need to make sure that we have, standard structures and strategies of data in our country, that we can have conversations when we're not slacking. Atukunda says, lockdowns were copied and pasted. This is from the gallery. Wesige Ram says, how does government control order? Is it by violating? That is something we need to look at. Then Atukunda still says, safer for only those supporting, not those who critique. Wesige Ram says, tribalism is a constant. It's natural. You can mitigate it at incline of politics, and that's why we should control politicians. That is the problem where the government is. I think I've lost Georgia because of time. We have only a few minutes to the top of the hour to have this conversation go. Mariam, I had wanted to tap into.
Sorry, I dropped off. I'm so sorry, but I think I have now stood at a point. Yeah, I am standing in a climbed a tree now. Okay. Okay, so we will be happy to share the issues paper that we are developing with you following the mini audit of the elections. But going back to protection of the youth, the country is obliged, the state is obligated to protect and serve the citizenry. And also when it comes to, I would say we are our first protectors in the first place. People do not want to follow SOPs. You know, something very, very, very simple. You know, I meet people walking with their masks under the chin. You know, you meet me and now when you want to talk to me, you remove your mask. I do not understand the logic behind that. I agree with Kidega on the fact that we need to use the people who are meant to protect us, and these are the armed and security forces, need to use very, very minimum or no force at all. We need to educate and educate. We have grown up in spaces. We have grown up thinking that caning a student is what will help them to understand math. We have grown up thinking that if you shout at me, that is when I will understand, which is why we need national dialogue. People do not believe in talks because they have the only way they know is violence. We did agenda, Forum for Women in Democracy did a gender review. Interest the viewers and the listeners to go to our website at Forward and check out the findings. Also, our study on violence against women in elections. Mamma mia. There are so many things happening and so many solutions and recommendations that we could adopt and put in place, Andrew. So for me, I go back to dialogue. I go back to, you know, educate the people. We talk about, we use force. You know, the police threatens you. Sometimes you don't even understand. Why are they telling me to be home by 7? Does COVID spread at night? You know, so we just need to understand and educate the masses.
Thank you so much, Georgia. Daniel Obal says Georgia raises a great and very new point of husbands imposing another curfew on their women. Maybe we will have to understand deeper what forms of this new curfew takes. However, whatever it isn't right. This calls for deeper sensitization and conversations. Government cannot definitely legislate on private or bedroom matters. It is 50 minutes. Someone wanted to speak earlier on, and I denied him the chance then. I don't know whether he's still here. Atukunda, you had something to submit as we finalize?
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Kyamagero Andrew. I'm Atukunda Onesimus. Actually, I'm the real Muntu Wawansi Kyamagero.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So thank you, panelists. You raised so important issues to ponder about and to talk about. But me, I'm just a common guy, you know, employed in some startup around Kampala. I'm not in any political wing, not any party, not any organization. But I keep, you know, observing and studying what is happening around.
And what do you observe?
So you people talked about youth. Yes. So what I have observed is that as young people, there are no safe spaces for dialogue. Like I've seen some people submitting that relatively we have safe spaces for dialogue in Uganda. I don't agree with that. Because when you see on the media, even Mr. Kyamagero, where you are an expert, you check all the shows you have. You give us the youth shows about music, stupid movies, skimpy people dressing. They are the ones you bring to youth to watch. And shows that talk about national matters, you bring for us men and women with gray hair talking nonsense, not understanding our point of view as young people of this country. Like all the shows that talk about politics, they don't involve young people. You only bring people who are not. Actually, these people in this communication, in this conversation we have had here, these people should be exposed on TV. So as the young people, so we can see them and know those faces that are against us in those organizations they align with. So for now, I can't agree with any young person who has not seen. Yeah.
At Kunda, because of time, allow
Yes,
me.
I'm saying right now I can't agree with.
At Kunda, time is not on our side. We just have a few minutes. Let me just tap into Daniel Obal. What is your comment on this entire conversation? How can we have lasting peace?
Thank you so much, Andrew. Of course, I want to thank everyone for their submission. I have been trying to learn a lot from everything being said by my sister Maria and my brother Kidega, but I think we need to look deeper into the context of youth empowerment and then democracy and all that. Mine still goes back to the aspect of socio-economic empowerment. That is where we need to begin from. I think we need to engage deeper on how we can create safer spaces for young people in the field of economics, in the field of entrepreneurship, how we can use the laws to try and give tax holidays to the young people, to try and put in place startup funds. That's the only way that we can drive these conversations forward. The young people cannot only achieve politically. Let's not look at political achievement as the only space the young people need to occupy. No, the young people need to even achieve a lot in terms of development, economic development in agriculture, setting up companies, private companies and NGOs. I think let the young people use every space available for them. It will not, of course, be an open space for us. We need to fight for it. This is world over. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my panelists. And while we're finalizing this conversation, I want to thank all those who have been in the gallery, your contributions, and those on Twitter. I've been seeing a couple of tweets running around. Jude, I've seen a couple of your tweets. Morinda Agre, Sad Dan Magic, I see you here. William Serikali, thank you so much. Monica, Molinda Agre, Nantongo Bashal. I really want to thank all of you. While you're finalizing, Nuwagaba, what are your parting shots?
Well, thank you so much, Andrew, and I thank the panelists for yes, thank you so much. I thank the panelists as well. Well, building peace is not a simple task, but it's also not very hard. What we need to do, I think, as young people, go back and reflect, see how we have been doing business. It's not business as usual. We need to change our ways of approaching our problems. First of all, like I said, the way we look at each other, we must look at each other as human beings. And then that will change the way we talk to each other. We need to abandon scorn. We need to bad intent with everyone. Whoever comes to talk to us, don't assume that they have really bad intent. And also ask questions. You know, we always want to think that, you know, our rightness justifies our rudeness. You know, your rightness, your right, yes, doesn't justify your rudeness. You know, you should understand that people have different backgrounds where they are coming from, whatever argument they are making. If they are not giving you whatever information you need to know, you need to be very understanding. And also, if you want change, you have to make a serious case for it. You know, if you want change, make a case for it, make an argument. Don't just come and give us, you know. But one last thing I want to say, Andrew, is whatever we can do collectively. We can change this country together and build it for better. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Maria, Natabi, what are your parting shots as we're finalizing?
I want to thank you all, the moderators, and for giving us this opportunity to discuss these pertinent issues.
Andrew, can I say something before we end?
No.
Peace and for us to achieve peace and justice, we have to understand that we should be fair to each and everyone must respect the rule of law. No one is above the law, and we cannot have peace without justice first. So I think we should all stand up. It does not matter if it is about Andrew, it does not matter if it is about Moses, it does not matter if it is about Georgia. If there is injustice, we should all stand up against it. And we should be realistic to ourselves. Let us stop dreaming. And then I will also ask that anyone who is in a leadership position, ensure that you build the institution and let the law work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Kidega, what are your parting shots?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, Andrew, I've had issues today with this network, so I've been off and on. So I feel I haven't had enough time to make my contributions. But anyway, let me just use the last 2 minutes. And I missed out on the bigger part of the discussion, but let me just make my snippet comments on some of these questions. On the aspect of arbitrary arrests, I want to mention that Uganda as a country has one of the most progressive constitutions. Even the National Youth Council Act, it has been benchmarked on by Kenya, Tanzania, and South Sudan. We have one of the most progressive laws here in Uganda. What is lacking is the culture of constitutionalism, which we must continuously embed both at individual and at institutional level. Once we can have the culture of constitutionalism embedded strongly in our people, then we can deal away with the abuse of our constitution, among other aspects. Then I also want to say that the National Youth Council does.
I can't hear you. I think your network is gone. Kidega, your network, we have lost your network, Kidega.
Civil society, human rights advocates to join us on this journey as we embark to restore peace and justify and find answers to why our young people were arrested illegally and mistreated. Then lastly, I think to me,
in a minute, Kidega, in a minute, it's 4.
Yes, in just 1 minute. I think that I agree with Maria, because peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice. So we must continue to encourage distributive justice, that everyone across the divide can access opportunities, can access fair treatment by the law, and can analyze the perspective of your divide. Short of that, I believe that we can build peace and live in respective of our political ideologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Kidega. Nantongo is not here with us. So let me have Nantongo left already. I think she's already off. Georgia, what are your parting shots? Oh, she's still here. Georgia, just a minute. Nantongo, what are your parting shots?
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity again. I thank the organizers of this beautiful session. It has indeed been educative, and I just love the zeal of the panelists. But then what we need to know is that, one, the youth are not only the beneficiaries of the change we need, rather they are the agents of the similar change. So the youth need to know that they entitled to push this as agents of this change, and to push it further. And still, we can't leave things just go like that, because if you really want a youthful Uganda, then we need to create it by our own grounds and actually strategies to make it a wonderful one, because we all know what we really want. So let's not leave these other people to actually create the Uganda they want us to enjoy, yet we can create our Uganda on our own guidelines. And then lastly, we need to know that the peace we are looking for and the justice cannot be guaranteed up to when. Actually, it cannot be guaranteed because the youth are actually not sure of tomorrow. They're not sure of what is really going to happen. So let's not be sure of this peace and the justice because of the current situation, the previous situation. So this makes the youth not sure of what is really to happen next because they have experienced it all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Georgia, what are your parting shots?
Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you very much to all the amazing panelists and the people who contributed. It's been a very, very insightful conversation. One, we need to build a movement as the youth. And this is the same thing we keep saying in the women's spaces. We need an urgent movement of youth organizing for the advancement of their meaningful participation. We need to raise civic consciousness. on youth participation. You know, people do not know what they do not know. If people understood how this country came into formation, this colonial structure would be better organized. We need to engage with political parties to intentionally appoint and or include youth in key leadership positions and set up non-patronizing mentorship programs within political parties between the younger and the old members. Because, Andrew, what we have right now, it looks like we are pulling ropes with the elderly, and yet we all need each other. It's not about pulling ropes. We need to work together. I will talk about organizations. Organizations working with the youth need to strengthen M&E systems to ensure that youth are not left behind, you know, in a bid to build sustainable peace. Andrew, this is my major parting shot. Uganda is like a house right now, a very dilapidated house that we are all trying to renovate. And yet for me, I think the best way forward is to actually demolish it and build afresh. So I'm saying we need to dismantle the system and reconstruct. My future for Uganda is a Uganda with a people-centered mission. We need to mobilize people by training and sensitization. We need to better organize using already existing forms, because we have all the National Youth Council and so on, but these are only voted by a few members, electoral college votes. I used to think that because, you know, I'm a youth, I can go with my ID showing my age and I vote. No, that's not So we need everyone involved. Finally, I think we need people to act for socio-economic transformation. We need to be peaceful, productive, prosperous, and happy. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgia. Thank you so much. Those in the gallery, a couple of you have been sending in messages here. Jadrin says, I support Tukunda's submission of letting the youth access political panels on TV and all the people. Wesige Ram, thank you so much. Tukunda, thank you so much for being a part of this. And those who are not just talking, but they were just in Kamori, following this, Monica, we have Jadrin, Justus, Tegeka, and so many others. I really want to thank you. Thanks for being a part of this. And any other time when these kind of conversations come through, please be the first to join us and let's find lasting solutions as the youth. And great thanks to the organizers, that is Center for Constitutional Governance, in partnership with Action Aid Uganda. We can't thank you enough. This is one civic space we're finding as youths to interact and find lasting solutions. I'm Andrew Kyamagero. For now, all I can say, stay safe, wear your masks, and avoid big crowds. Good evening.